All right, good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Rikesha Brown. I'm the director of the Freddie T. Davie Honors College at Hampton University, and I am here just to speak very briefly on how we attack racism in education. I have been working in education for the bulk of my career, from pre-K up to the graduate level. So I'm excited to be here to talk about this, because when we talk about how we attack racism and we talk about the foundations of our country, education is just that. What we know is that what's being taught in our schools is not the breadth of what racism really entails, what the children are being exposed to. And really, as technology continues to advance and expand, what the children are being exposed to conflicts with what they're learning in school. And so what parents are saying, what they see on social media, in TikTok, on YouTube, and all of these videos, and what we are really presenting them in lessons is what we have to start to try and to make those things balance and meet each other and make sense, so that they're speaking in tandem, because we're giving a lot of mixed messages. Speaking specifically about the collegiate level, because that's where I am right now, our task and our goal is to make sure that our students right now understand not just activism, but the dangers of activism, the truth about activism, and how they play a role in their everyday life, how activism can play a role in their everyday life. Everyone has a place in the movement against racism. Some people's role will be on the front lines. Some people's role will be in the streets doing protesting, but some people's role is more academic. My role is in a role such as this, communing with community members and community partners, communing with my students and talking to them about the facts of the historical context. And then also as a parent, as I continue to engage my son and answer questions and talk about his understanding of the present day circumstances that we find ourselves in, but also how we got here and what we need to do so that we don't continue to reach this place, because this is cyclical. We've seen this before. We will continue to see it until we get to the heart of it and begin to actually make changes. So that's my brief spiel. I believe there are questions. You're on mute.
Okay, I was muted. I said, thank you, my Hamptonian sister. Thank you for joining us. So if you were to talk to let's say a MIT hacker, or, be locked in a room for 48 hours for a weekend, what is like one thing that you would tell the group of people to try to work on to try to eradicate the racism that happens in trying to get into higher education, as in why there aren't as many Blacks graduating? I mean, I know it's improved, but how can we increase the amount of Blacks that's graduating from higher education, as well as specifically in STEM subjects? Do you have any thoughts around that as to how technology might be able to solve that?
Absolutely. I think that our biggest concern as it pertains to graduate rates directly parallel inference rates. I couldn't get the word out, I'm sorry. And so the first thing that we have to do is start getting information out to younger students. We have to get them information about all of the variety of careers that are available to them, avenues that they can take, programs that are available to them, and then making sure that technology is available to them earlier. Part of what I'm finding, particularly as a parent of a younger child, is that what we're packaging to draw students in is not necessarily inclusive. So we have to find a way, one, to be inclusive in our advertising, because if you're packaging coding but not explaining what coding is or how coding affects or impacts what they're doing, kids are not interested in that. And so we have to look at the packaging of that, because yeah, we know that coding is important. We know that, but does my son really understand that coding is important? How do I explain that to him? You have to explain it to him through the games. And so what we've seen is that, the Minecraft games seem to be really important, but games develop very, very quickly. And so we have to keep our fingers on the pulse of what is the hot button for the age group that we're looking at. And probably what we need to do is stop trying to look at kids as a large group and look at kids as in pockets. So we're looking at what is important at that 3rd and 4th grade range. What is important at the 5th to 7th or 5th to 8th grade range? What is important at that 9th to 12th grade range? Because they're not going to be the same, and the packaging for that should be different. It also has to be inclusive of packaging for parents, because just because you put a game out that a child understands or wants to play, or just because you put information out that targets a child, if parents don't buy into it, kids don't have jobs. So they don't have money, they're not going to pay for it and make sure that the children are getting there. So I would focus on packaging. I would focus on presenting it in such a way that it is tangible and in bite-sized pieces that can be easily digested. And then I would also focus on making sure that it is accessible and representative of all of the demographics in those small pockets.
Wow, you definitely just said a lot there. So if we could maybe transition to health education a little bit. You know, as you know, obviously being a woman, I'm sure every now and again you have to talk to a student about women issues or things like that. And then when it comes to COVID and, you know, with Hampton being in kind of this virtual world and things, and I wonder, I'm curious, you know, your thoughts, not even your thoughts, but your experience. Have students been taking it seriously? And what are some things that we can do to maybe increase health measures in education? I don't know if you were, I know we went to Hampton at the same time, but I don't know if you remember when we had that SARS outbreak in the gym because people weren't wiping their sweat down on the gym. That, to this day, that sticks with me. I'm a maniac in gyms that I go into. So how can we maybe do more health education inside of the HBCUs and things like that? You know, Hampton has a history of it with hygiene, where to get into Hampton, you had to come with a toothbrush because hygiene really kind of separates you with, you know, that whole history. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think we find ourselves in an interesting parallel right now because we are in the virtual world, because we are 100% virtual at this point in the semester. We only did virtual for this semester. So it's one thing to kind of present this understanding of the severity of the situation. However, the students are at home, and what they do at home, we don't have any control over. And so all we can continue to say is, we take this very seriously. We think that you should be staying home. But if the people that you're around don't think that they should be staying home, they're not staying home. If the people that they are around, if the family members are not taking it as seriously as others, they're not staying home. In addition to that, for the students who are working or have parents who have to work outside of the home, they're not able to stay home, potentially though, I mean, specifically those of us who are essential workers. And so they're getting mixed messages. I think that on the one hand, bringing students back to the campus would give a little more of a heavy touch on the messaging that we're giving out. We also couldn't control what they were going to do on campus in a way that would keep us safe on campus, which is what we're seeing at all of these other universities who brought their students back and are sending students home or are quarantining large numbers of students. I think the report yesterday is that there's one school that has like 900 students in quarantine at this moment because of an outbreak in 2 specific dorms. That is, I mean, it's incredible that, I mean, there's just no way to hold it, you know, to really contain those types of numbers in the circumstance. And we're dealing with that young adult population where they're quote unquote grown, but there's only so much that we can tell them to do. It's not a boarding school. It's not a military school. It is a university campus, and there are some freedoms and leeways. And so I think presenting the message about staying safe and making good choices is one thing, but the mandates and requirements, because we don't have consistent mandating and requiring in our country, and then by state, and then by city. So, you know, once you bring students back to campus, they're all coming with different ideas and attitudes and thoughts and feelings. And I don't know necessarily that we're going to be able to control that the way that we think that we will, or the way that we hope that we will. My hope is that we can, because I really want to stay safe, but I don't know that that's a rational goal.
You know, you just brought up a really good point that I had not considered about them coming in from various different states. So they have different perspectives on the mandates, the hygiene, what you should do. You know, some of them coming from urban environments, some of them coming from rural, you know. So that's actually a really good point. Another good point that you made was around the family members not taking it seriously. And I want to dive into that a little bit. we found when we were doing in our financial research, we have found that oftentimes people lack generational wealth and things like that because, just bad habits being passed down. So now basically what I'm hearing from you is similar in the health world as well, where if your family isn't taking health measures seriously, anything from eating right to washing your hands to getting vaccinated, then you're not going to take it seriously. So I would love your thoughts on, are you familiar with any programs that have tried to attack it from a family perspective? And once again, if you were sort of in this room of hackers, what might be a good challenge statement or case study to present them with for them to work on to try to solve that? Because that would be really cool if that could be one of the outcomes of this.
Absolutely. So of course, if you look at mental health or, in social psychology or psychological studies, we've looked at how to attack mental health, how to attack physical health disparities and challenges from the familial level. And we've been looking at this for a long time. And what we found is that it's very difficult because of individual beliefs and individual belief systems. The other thing that we found is that federal mandates really do make a difference for things. So, seatbelts was the last time that people were really up in arms about the government trying to mandate some sort of safety measure. And seatbelts was the thing. They can't make us do X, Y, and Z. But once it became law, then it was, people, the measures at the family level were, do we believe in the laws? Do we not? Do we follow the laws? Do we not? And so it's tough, even with the masks. The mask thing, once it became federally mandated, or at least at the state level in Virginia, once it became mandated, we saw more masks. We have not necessarily seen the numbers going down because we're not stopping people from gathering in these groups. As long as people are continuing to gather, when they gather, they take the masks off, we're still spreading the virus, among other things. But we saw the masks go up, and so we made some spaces or the uses of the masks go up, so we made some spaces be safer for more people to get out to. I think that what should happen in terms of a teching hack would be that working with social psychologists, working with psychologists or professionals that work in tertiary and secondary prevention levels, so that we're looking at where we can start and then what we can do in terms of making sure that people have access to the information and are really engaging the information. One of the things that we see right now that's big in Virginia is the add your phone to the tracking thing. So you can add your phone, it's supposed to be anonymous, but that way if you are in a space where we believe that there was somebody that had COVID-19, they can come together. Well, one of the issues with that is that people don't trust it. So there has to be a way that we can have people to engage the technology and still feel safe. And so the task for a hacker would be to promote that same sort of technology in such a way that it doesn't feel like tracking, because that's really what it is, but it's tracking for a specific purpose. But people feel like if they put their name in there or if they put their number in there, then all of their information will be compromised. And that is a challenge that could potentially happen, but there's got to be a way that we could promote it and set it forth so that people will buy into it and we will get the participation that we need to make it more effective.
Yes, well, one of my friends actually owns one of those apps, and I was helping him promote it. And oftentimes, when you're talking about this whole trust factor and them not trusting it, is usually because they think, because they're usually right, that they're going to use the data for some type of ulterior motive. So I guess kind of what I'm hearing from you is a matter of maybe some nonprofits coming together to fund it that does not, they agree there are no ulterior motives, just purely for data tracking purposes. Maybe like an MIT could lead something like that. So I took copious notes, Doctor. So yes, we have a question from the audience as we wrap up. And it says, responsibility and accountability are important. Do you think African Americans lack either?
I don't think that we lack responsibility or accountability. I think that where we place responsibility and accountability is not always in the same spots that other people place responsibility and accountability. But I think to suggest that one race over another does not have either of those two things is inaccurate, because I could stand here and say, do you think that, you know, white people right now have responsibility and accountability for the deaths of people, or for the deaths of Black people specifically, or for the outbreak of this pandemic that could have been, you know, stifled a while ago and has continued to grow and build? And so I think it's unfair to say that there's no accountability or responsibility for either of these things, but I think that it is accurate to say that sometimes the placement of those things and the weight that we place in those areas doesn't always meet the challenge, and so that becomes the task at hand.
Okay, the last question I want to ask you, you know, you kind of got me thinking to put it into real life, right? So we're talking about access and understanding and you know, all of that. And to your point, it's not really about responsibility and accountability. I think it kind of almost boils down to the resources, like what you said about working with the psychologists and things like that. That then costs money. And your program specifically at Honors College is the best program on the campus. That is the most innovative program, where for those that aren't familiar with the HBCU's Honors Colleges, they induct 30 of the brightest students each year, and it's not really about who has the highest GPA, but really who is potentially kind of going to change the world and be the most innovative and really kind of use their skills to kind of really make a name for themselves and fundamentally help change the school and the world. I'm proud to be an alum, and we are the least funded on the campus as well. So how do we get organizations that are looking to maybe support us, you know, that are looking to support the brighter side of the education within the Black community, you know, the future, the innovation and things like that? How can we better support initiatives like what you're doing? And is there maybe even a tech solution for that?
I think the first thing that we have to do is start to respect the art of interdisciplinary studies. Part of what we find when I'm looking for funding or trying to work with companies with funding, if I talk to a business company, they only want to work with business students. If I'm talking to a tech company, they only want to work with the engineering students. But the Honors College itself specifically caters to any student that is on campus. And what we have been able to find, or what we see just across history, is that generally it takes somebody from this area, from that area, and different schools of thoughts that come together that really form solutions, which is why we have panels such as this, where we have different people talking from different areas to really attack the same issue. And so once we start to find companies that can find the value in supporting interdisciplinary studies and looking at students from different areas of thought who are focused on the same topic and the same issue, then we'll be able to have the funding that we need to continue to grow and move forward and build and promote our students. Because I don't think that one area is going to change any one of these things. We're going to need students from all over, and we're going to need the thoughts of the students and the thoughts of the professionals in those areas to really make a difference.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. That's why I asked you to be here today. And it's always a pleasure and an honor, my dear. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the yard.
Thank you.